and
Hello.
welcome back to the Procurement and Finance Coffee Break. I'm here again with my co-host, Richard Beaumont.
There's a knack to this. You might detect in the next few that we've locked ourselves in a room to actually record sat together, because it's much nicer than Teams.
Yes.
What are we on today?
We may even move into another room.
No, I think your spot was still in the same. Go on. What are we doing today?
So today we're talking about the silent killer of transformation programs.
Right.
Now, this was a short blog I
Yeah.
wrote about, I can't remember when, it was either earlier this year or last year.
Yeah.
And I thought it was just worth a quick chat because this is relevant to both finance and procurement transformation, and indeed any other type of transformation in IT, HR, or ops.
Yep.
And talking to some IT people recently, and just made me realise how much this is still going on, where often it can be an IT-led implementation of a system.
Yep.
But it's frequently, they just try and get a system in. We're frequently thinking about the big picture and change management. So I thought it'd be useful to think of what are some of the transformation challenges.
Right.
So as you know, I like a McKinsey report.
You do, and even I know this one, right? Because we've talked about it a lot, and this is right up there with the principle that, if I install new software on my laptop, it goes wrong, and I have to ask a small child to come and help me do it because they just do it naturally. Amazingly, the figure's still consistent. 70% of transformations fail. 70%. So you think about the number of things that you have tried to change in your own business, about the things that we've observed in other clients. 70% of those fail. And I guess the key reason is why.
Yeah.
Why do they fail?
So I think for transformation, there's best practice methodologies, but unfortunately most people think about just implementing an IT system or just changing a business process without thinking about, okay, well, what is, how am I going to structure this?
Right.
So they just sort of dive straight into it without thinking, oh, and if you never done a business process change or a system implementation, then I would say, speak to a consultant at least to get an idea of what methodology to use. So the main reasons they fail is the first one, lack of executive sponsorship. So you don't get the budget you need and the resources you need in order to be able to implement it properly, to invest in change management, to backfill employees so they can work on the program, to align stakeholders. The second reason, unclear goals and objectives. So if you haven't had a clear business case that's been approved at board or C-suite level on what the objectives is, what's the return on investment, what is the scope of this transformation. You often get transformation scope creep, and then you started at wanting to implement one little system, and before you know it, it's a big monster. So unclear goals and objectives. The other one, which I've mentioned twice now, limited change management. So even on programs where at the start of the program, I've seen change management flagged, as an imperative for success, and the need to have a change lead on the program, to do a change impact assessment, work out what stakeholders and what teams are going to be changed by the business processes impact, how big is that impact, be able to prepare training for them. I've still seen it, even when it's flagged right at the outset, which sometimes it's not even thought about at the outset, it still gets underinvested in and left too late, and then it's just a bit of a traumatic experience for the business. And then it's sort of no sustainable plan, so the sort of lack of resources, expecting people to be able to do too much with a day job as well. And then the other thing I see this mainly in very large corporates, where they basically have like a ridiculous number of change programs going on.
Yep.
And you just think, wait, you've got your staff doing their day job, and they're on 5 different working groups for different programs, and they're like, A, they burn out, and B, when you ask them what the impact of changing this business process is, they go, oh, well, we've got another program on over here, but that also may impact it. And they're trying to figure out what the big picture is. So I think it's very important when you have a transformation program to adopt best practice methodology, speak to consultants about what best practice methodology looks like, because if you don't adopt that, then in my view, you don't have any hope in meeting a decent return on investment.
I mean, I think 2 things I pick out there. I'm going to come back to you about sort of the executive sponsorship in a minute, but 2 things that really strike me. One, getting people to lead programs as well as doing their day job is a disaster. It just is a total disaster. And, for me, the big lesson is if you want someone to drive a change program, you've got to take them out of their day job, because they can't do it. I mean, everyone's busy in what they do anyway. And this thing about change fatigue, I mean, I've worked for a company before where, for different reasons, the company went through restructuring and team size changed, and you did a team and you go through that painful process of losing some people or reorganizing people. And if you've got unions involved, that's a really long process. I think the 3rd time I did it in the same job, we hadn't even finished the consultation process for the previous change while starting the next one. And you wonder why you get total disillusionment, because people just don't, we're humans, we like to have at least one island of stability where we can just breathe and say, right, just, am I okay? Is everything going on?
Yeah.
And if everything around you is just a whirlwind, and sometimes it is, I mean, we think back, I mean, memory is already fading of the pandemic. But if you just think about what it was like to be working in the pandemic, where everything got thrown up in the air, way of working, your supply chains were ripped up, your customers were ripped up, your ability to use tech was ripped up. I mean, we were literally spinning every single plate, and it was exhausting.
It was exhausting, yeah.
It was exhausting because it was just
but also, if let's say you're, I don't know, let's say you're a big insurance company that want to completely transform your business, and you've got, let's say, 6 massive change programs going on, which a lot of the same key employees and SMEs are in. The problem is if you look at the business cases for each of those change programs, maybe they stack up, but when you put them all together and accept the same participants to be able to contribute in a good way to all those initiatives, it just doesn't work.
Do you know what it's
just
like?
too inefficient.
Do you know I'll tell you what it's like, and this has happened to me more times than I care to think about. You're on a change program, like I'm doing something in procurement, and you get to a meeting, and then someone drops you an email saying, oh, by the way, that thing that you've got scheduled for next week can't actually happen for 2 months because it's reliant on this other program bringing in some change to the IT, right? And do you know what it feels like? It feels like you're doing a change program, but you're like in that sort of, what do you call it, that stop-start caterpillar on the motorway. You get going, you've got momentum in your program, you're delivering your business case, and then because of something else, you have to stop. And then you wait. And then you've got to raise the energy to get going again. And again, it just... Honestly, it's
so that's why I think because actually, in my observation, you just won't get the return on investment in any of the change programs that you expected to. So I would say if you want to, it's a bit like what we said in another chat. You said it's sometimes it's not saying do baby steps, but just be pragmatic, because if your assumptions in your business case say we're going to achieve X, Y, and Z, and we're going to do it on this program, on this program, on this program, if you just look at the isolation, maybe you are optimistic, but when you stack it all together, it just doesn't add up.
Right. Okay. Agreed. So I just want to zoom in on that, one of the first points you made, executive sponsorship. I'm running a change program. I'm a middle to senior manager. I've got my business case, I know what I'm doing, I've got my deliverables. Why is having an executive sponsor important to me to succeed?
Well, I think not just for to make sure the program's set up for success in terms of it's got all the resources, you've got a clear scope of work, you've got funding, but also, let's say there's a change program that impacts you. Your executive sponsor is the CFO, but there's another change program that could impact your program that's led by the CIO. So you need someone to be able to navigate stakeholders that are outside of your zone of influence.
Joe, I'm just going to make an observation. I'm not going to probably for a different area. It comes back to leadership, right? And in the context of change management, if I think about the large organisations I've either worked in or supported as a consultant, typically the board will appoint some kind of head of projects or head of change who's coordinating lots of stuff that's going on, and that's great. They've got someone doing the process and all the heavy lifting on the detail. But ultimately, I think, and I come back to military, right? As a military commander, I had to know the cogs that were turning, both in what I was doing and what was going on around me, because I had to be able to adjust what I was doing according to what else was going on. So I was one cog in many cogs. I often get the impression that executive teams don't fully execute that role. They rely on someone to give them the monthly update on everything's going well and we're doing X, Y, Z, and there's a few traffic lights. But actually, surely in change management, it's an executive leadership role to say, we are happy with the scope of what's going on. We know how it fits together. And month by month, we will give guidance or decisions about where we need to adjust to ensure it goes forward. But I don't often see that happen.
No. And especially see that not happening in the sort of mid-cap market. Might, and believe it or not, that example in the large insurance company that I told you about, that was a massive global insurance company, and apparently there was a change board, but it was just not being effective in going. Can all these change programs happen at once? Right. And is this? Are we going to actually be able to proceed with all these change programs at once, with all the same people? Well, a lot of the same people involved in all of them.
I agree, and I know it seems like quite a lot to ask, but actually, chairmans and chief execs, do you know the extent of what's going on, what's critical, what's not critical, who is being overburdened, and what the priority is? If you do, great. But I have a sneaking suspicion, having observed it, that not everyone plays that game. Right? Okay.
Yes.
So, how would you summarise? What have we got to avoid if we want to eliminate these silent killers? Executive sponsorship is one.
Yes.
Change management's another.
Yes. The business case.
Business case. Okay.
The clear scope, goals, and objectives.
And we talked about business cases.
We did.
Are you holding yourself to account? Or more importantly, is someone else holding to account?
And tracking benefits. Yes. Yeah. So, and then if you're not sure how to go about all that, I would say what a CFO said to me recently. It says, for every £1 you spend in investment in design in a program before it starts is well worth it, because if you don't design the way the program's going to execute it, and you don't think about it and just go headlong into it, basically you'll pay for it. Yeah,
I sound advice. Right, there we go. Silent killers. So maybe build that into your Atomic Habits. If you haven't watched that one, watch it. Atomic Habits for Success in Change Management. Small things. Get the board engaged. Have a change management process. Have a business case.
Yes.
And don't overcommit resources, because your people will get burnt out.
And if all that sounds like you need more guidance, research into what best practice looks like. Engage a consultant to do at least do a small project like mobilizing the program for you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I know getting consultancy, sometimes people say, raise their eyebrows. Actually, just getting someone, not to lead it, not to change it, but actually just to work out whether it's doable and to give you those clear things that you need to think about is so useful, particularly as you say, if you've never done it before.
Okay.
Anyway, there we go. So I hope you enjoyed that. Please like or comment. It's really helpful.
We have quite a lot of people saying they watch, but don't.
Silent observers. Silent observers. Come on, give us a like. Boost our thing.
Jeff.
There we go. You've been named. Right. I have no idea. Anyway, right, there we go. On that note, see you next time.
Bye.